Okay, I've just set the recording. Yes, I think Pankaj, please go on.
Yeah, sure, Kiran. Actually, I'm just pretty much new to this group, and basically, I'm starting to prepare my EA certifications. Actually, I work for Capgemini Americas. I'm deputed at the client side, and I support their IT infrastructure as a on-site delivery lead. So that I'm into all the architecture of infrastructure, designing, maintaining, and managing their clients' overall IT footprint, cloud and on-prem, and the job basically extends towards even towards the service management side. So uh, enterprise EA certification was my agenda for a long time, but because of the time commitments, I couldn't do it. But now I'm pretty much serious. So, and during the COVID time, actually, I thought of utilizing time much more in this, and then I just happen to serve the group so that I can get affiliated and have a better sense of understanding what are the practicalities, why it is actually required, rather than just reading something, some articles or open standards. The practical experience from the people makes you understand more of the content, and it actually generally makes me easy for all my certifications. So. Yeah, thank you, and thank you for accepting me into the group. And I'll definitely look forward with all you and your experiences, try to understand and interpret, and which definitely helped me in my certification journey.
Okay, fantastic. So how many years, Pankaj, do you come with?
Yeah, so I have around 16 years, not 16, basically, it's around 18 years now in the IT industry. I started with a network engineer kind of stuff in role in 2001. So it's more, I'm just nearing to rather 20 now, so to be precise. Um, and I've been through all sort of roles throughout my career, from engineer to leads, architects, and project manager, and delivery lead, service delivery manager. So multiple roles played, and finally here I am, where I'm supporting Capgemini's client at on-site in New York. Client is I won't take a name, but client is he's a renowned client in real estate. So
Okay,
it's right
that's
in
nice.
Midtown, New York. So
Okay,
uh,
I think one general rule for everybody is in case you feel that you're sharing client sensitive information, you can be very discreet and don't have to share it. So I think that way, people can have a takeaway from this session as to what they want to do, so that all of us are not like falsely representing or violating the IP of our employers, that kind of stuff. So I think that would be fine. So I think Pankaj, that's great. So who else is there? I think Ash, Ashish. Is it Ashish or Ash? I'm not sure. Ash, do you want to go ahead? Okay, Ashish is muted. So I think let us go to Ulysses. So Ulysses, do you want to go ahead? Hello, Ulysses. Oh yeah, I think.
Hello.
Yeah, please speak up.
Hi, everybody. I am Ulises Martinez. I am entering to this wide world of EA. So I'm here to learn to share or learn about your share sharing experience and well, I'm interested to have more uh, how do you say uh, information and grow up in this world.
Okay, from which part of the world are you joining?
I am from Mexico.
Okay, great. Okay. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
I'm fine. Bien, gracias.
Okay, okay. So, muy bien. I know a little bit of poquito Spanish. Poquito Spanish. So I think, yeah, which domain are you working for, Ulysses? Which technology domain or domains are you working?
Well, I am software engineer, but I was develop myself my career first on develop software. After that, I am uh, achieve some goals on infrastructure areas, and right now we are uh, develop an enterprise architecture practices on the enterprise. I am working in Grupo Lala. So, as I said, I am trying to get more learn about the discipline for enterprise architecture. So I am here for that.
Thanks, Ulysses. How many years of industry experience are you coming with?
I had 2 years in the enterprise architecture area, but I have 15 years in IT department in Grupo Lala.
Okay. Yeah. Great. It's a nice intro. And let us move on to Marco. Marco, please introduce yourself to the group. Marco, you're muted. Oh, yeah.
Hello, everyone. This is Marco Brusenos. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, Marco. Please go ahead.
Yes, well, thanks for putting this together, Kieran and everyone. First and foremost, right, I've been eager to join, the WhatsApp group and everything, right? I think, all the information that you guys share is pretty important for us that we are obviously working in the IT industry. So I accumulate over, let's say, 15 years of experience, varying from different industries, but my primary industry and experience is in retail. So just like Ulysses, I'm also Mexican born, right? But I actually, radicate here in Houston, Texas. So for over, let's say 8 years, right? I've been in IT, basically implementing enterprise systems such as Oracle Retail, let's say pricing management, cloud solutions, uh, product development. So I'm also part of the enterprise architecture domain. I also have experience in supply chain. I used to actually implement as well WMS systems in the enterprise, integrations, data migration. So many experiences combined over there, right? My primary role right now is an EA in academy sports. So that's where I've been working for the last 8 years. So in this particular role, right, I focus on application architecture. And what we're trying to do is basically, propose a center of excellence, right? I think the practice is very young in our company, right? So I'm eager to learn and share experiences, whichever we can bring to the table with the group. So first and foremost, again, I appreciate, the opportunity.
Yeah, I think. Thanks, Marco. Good. So you're from Texas, right? Texas, US.
Correct. Yes, I'm here in Texas, Central Time here in the US, in the States.
Okay.
So we're here. Thank you.
Good. I think everybody is facing the lockdown issues. So I think anybody going to office these days in the group, or everybody is working from home?
So I'll go first. This is Marco again. Primarily in the last couple of months, I've been working from home, Kieran. So it's been obviously a challenging environment with the pandemic. Specifically retail, there were a lot of, at least in the States, a lot of, Chapter 11, for those that are not familiar with, bankruptcies, right? They just, obviously had problems, the retailers and some other companies, to liquidate. So primarily it's from home, at least on my end.
Fine. Anybody else not from home can speak up, because I think 99% of all of us would be from home. So otherwise, we'll continue with the discussion today without further ado. So I think the topic was, not sure who brought it up, but yeah, okay. Devon says he's working from home. So who brought it up said, okay, how do you sell EA to stakeholders or within the organization or outside? I think that was one of the concerns about, I think, today's topic. So how do we sell EA to our stakeholder? How do you like articulate the value of EA to our management or customers? Or it's a very it's a buzzword that a lot of people have the hype about, but does it really? How do you, if you sell it, how do you do it? How do you position the value of it? And I think a couple of guys in this group are already EAs, so I think we can start pulling our thoughts one by one. I think let us start with Sammy, who's right at the top. Yes, I think Sammy, your 2 cents or your thoughts on the same.
Well, I was actually the one who brought it up.
Oh, great. Okay, so you go first.
Yeah, I can give you the background on why I actually asked this question. I've been working as an EA now for a year, and this is an issue that I've had at, where I work, where we are basically 3 EAs, 1 lead, and just 2 foot soldiers, and it's really hard to get this into a work environment that really has no concept of EA. I mean, they're just used to standard agile methods, waterfall models, and they want fast implementations, fast deployments, and people are really, really good at what they do, and they get things done quickly, but it's always like short-term measures. You're fixing stuff, but you can't really plan ahead. And of course, where I work, it's been a startup for, well, I think Trustpilot started in 2007. So it's been a startup company for such a long time, and it's really hard to execute long term. Now, when you come in, and I've only been there for a year, it's really hard to get a buy-in from people, especially from senior management, and also from C-level. So what I wanted to learn, how do you get the buy-in? How do you get senior management to buy in on this idea that we actually do need an EA? We actually need to be able to map out our capabilities, understand what systems are involved, and how to do these roadmaps. Because sincerely, when I do it and I present it, people look at me and people hear crickets, basically, or at least that's what I hear. People don't really grasp what I'm trying to explain. So if any of you have had the same experience, please let me know, what have you done to overcome this? Because I've come to a complete stop. I'm not really sure how to get around this. So please let me know what you've been facing and how you've dealt with it.
Okay, so Sammy, actually, were you hired as an EA? So were you hired as an EA in the company?
Well, my title is a business systems architect, and basically the group I'm in is the business system. It's called business systems, and it's basically all of the core systems that actually run the whole company. We're using Salesforce and HubSpot and all these Zendesk and all these different core systems that manage all of our core capabilities. So my job description involves everything there is to be about an EA, but it's not sort of like my official title, so to speak.
Add that there is this industry thing that true blue EA in the company only is the CEO or the CIO. So everybody else is designation wise called an EA. But a true blue EA gets, because he's a decision maker. So if you really play the role of an EA, you should be able to drive discussions, decisions, and product and roadmaps, architecture roadmaps, and strategy in your direction. I mean, in a favorable direction that the EA should control. But then most often, I think companies, as you said, have this challenge of getting stuck in a dual mode, run the business and change the business. So dual mode IT and all of that sort of stuff. One world is the agile part, the other is trying to make it fast and fast moving. So I think this conflict is always there. So I think it takes a while to make companies understand that here is a guy who can design the business, roll out things, and one is the architect from the IT side of things, the other is architecting from the business side of things, so that IT can be used as a leverage to deliver value to the top management. So there needs to be somebody who's actually talking that language, integrating business and IT folks together. And if you say it is your decision maker, the CIO, CTO, he perhaps will have a lot of other things on his plate that he may not be able to fully drive such initiatives. So, as a business designer, I think you are quite poised to talk about or drive initiatives, and then obviously play the role of an EA. So I think before I go ahead, I think let us invite. I just there was short few points from my side. I think let us have Devan who could throw some light on this. So if somebody's young in the team, I think maybe yeah. Anybody has Devan? I think you go ahead next, and then we'll have a summary of what it looks like based on the discussion.
Okay, Kiran, in fact, I have actually seen various flavors of IT organization. I initially started with a startup company, then a mid-sized company, then a service company, then a product company, and then again into services company. So I have seen that basically most of the CIOs or CTOs, they are actually kind of myopic. I mean, they have some short vision only. They are actually focused primarily either project specific or program specific. So unless your organization is very big, you have multiple BUs, multiple business process where things are becoming unmanageable, they actually don't consider EA as a value add. So this EA comes as a value add only when things are getting out of control. They need somebody to do some kind of hand holding, and they actually act as a bridge between business and IT. And business expects EA to know everything, know each and everything, which is actually not possible because even EA is very vast. So EA actually also seeks some kind of help from their subordinates or their IT teams also. But to me, it looks like that it actually primarily depends on the size of the organization, complexity of the processes, and vision of the organization where they want to go.
Um, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but how do you promote this hand-holding approach that you talk about? Because I don't have any direct access to C-level management, except for a hi when I see this, the CIO or CTO walking down the hallway. But I do speak to the VP who reports to him, but I don't really have any sort of relationship to him. So I'm not really sure how to go about this. How do you communicate that we actually need this? And this is an issue. I have a lot of meetings with the VP, and I have expressed my concerns about this, and he understands what I'm saying, but I'm not sure where the communication goes from there. I'm not really sure what happens. So, like, please say, like, what have you personally done to sort of like promote this idea that you guys really need an EA to be able to do long-term planning?
Okay. Yeah. So I think let me give you an example here. Maybe you would be able to correlate. So I worked with a telecom domain, which is actually kind of front runner in India. And now this telco offers different services, be it mobile, be it landline, be it DTH, and all other actually network-based services. Now for this, they have different business units. Now initially when they started, they did not have this EA. So they had this different teams of solution architects, business analysts, and all other teams like program manager and project manager. But somehow they were not actually able to realize the synergies or realize the common BUs between different BUs, because some of the BUs were getting services from, let's say, one external partner, and this external partner was providing service to both mobile business also, and similarly to landline business also. So they were not able to see that how they can negotiate better with their partners, and how they can actually technically enable themselves so that they have uh, better synergy, better negotiation. So they did not have this kind of visibility. So I won't say that actually set it up, but I was actually part of the initial team, and we used to have weekly meetings with our CIOs, and we actually used to present all the scenarios, business cases, and where we can actually do this aggregations, and where we can have better contracts, better negotiations with our partners. So this helped them, and they actually started realizing that yes, it adds value. But trust me, this is not a short-term journey. It takes approximately a minimum of 6 months to 1 year.
I think on the question of the hand holding, which Sammy was asking, so particularly, so I think you've answered that question about interaction with views and making yourself visible to the top management. Devan, so my experience has been that architects need to make themselves visible to the upper layers, either by means of writing white papers, thought leadership, or like taking something outside your comfort zone and then driving those things, and then any small initiative, and then you show that there is a market viability or proposition, and just try to showcase one or two such things, and then you get a lot of visibility. I think that would be the once they trust, okay, this guy can drive some new initiatives and take them to market fruition, and have a business model around them. So I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, to give you an example, there's a guy in one of my companies who, in the companies that I worked in, he actually joined as a business architect, and he actually came on board as a business analyst. So not even at that time, architect was not very popular. He came as a senior BA, business analyst. So he came with like a good amount of years, and he was well read, and he knew his domain stuff well. So what he did was he wrote a white paper saying how banks can roll out in the Indian subcontinent, and how the how that software company could actually roll out their products to the Asia Pac region, and to banks in India. Like, how can they position themselves? So he wrote that white paper, and he sent that as a for your FYI to the senior management, and that was quite solid. The amount of research that he had put into that paper, and his value-added points. So he became like a go-to guy when people used to go for these large deals. So they started taking him around, and very soon the guys who recruited him started reporting to him. So his career trajectory was like that quick. So I think that is the way to perhaps position yourself, that if the company doesn't recognize the value of EA, so I think you need to make the right kind of noises, and probably stick your neck out, and make yourself heard, and I think take up ideas, cross pollinate them, and then try to showcase value. I think once or twice if you do that, and then I think they'll be on your side. So that's been my experiences, I mean, to on some of the points. Yeah, I understand that it is quite a dicey thing when management thinks that this guy can solve everything and everything, and that kind of stuff. So that's also not what a monster EA profile should be. So he should be, if you should really position it quite well, and I think that comes with somebody who's driving all these initiatives with a mature CIO or CTO at the helm. So if he's seen various process styles in very matured companies, so he can drive such initiatives. But wherein, as Pankaj, as Devan said, that if that maturity is lacking in the companies and they're looking for quick value, so then it's obviously going to be a challenge.
Okay. Does this mean, like, has the experience been generally that you might enter a company being, I don't know, business analyst or ETI architect, whatever, that you sort of like transition from that to something else if there is no EA in place, so to speak?
No, I think that was not my point. So you're quite well positioned to drive what you're driving. So your problem is not that you're actually playing that role. When that guy joined, there was no such role, but you already have the role of a business designer. So I think you probably just need to look at the blue oceans around your market, like how can Trustpilot perhaps add a lot of value to its customers using design thinking approaches, or how you can actually leverage and create some entirely new markets which can disrupt and make the competition irrelevant. And then that's how you showcase value. Okay, see, here I am. I come with this profile. One of my job profiles is to design business and operating models, and I'll help you do it the right way if you do trust me. So I think if you can just create that kind of an atmosphere, and probably, as you said, they may not be aware of what you're capable of, but you go out of your way and then probably do one or two instances of things like this, then yes, they start believing, okay, a business designer means a guy who's actually putting the hat of a guy, person who can design the business and steer it to different paths, and change the operating model itself and things like that. So I think they can start gaining trust, and that's how you can build the stakeholder relationship. So I think we'll have somebody else also throw in their point. So I think Devan has answered it. Who else wants to go? Marco or Pankaj or Ahmad has just joined. So anybody wants to contribute on this further? Marco, your thoughts? Pankaj?
Yes, this is Marco. I can share some thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
So we are considered, I would say, a young, let's say, EA practice in the company, although we have, made major steps, at least to position ourselves back to Sami's question, right? I think the primary role of the EA practice is to establish a governance body. What I mean by that is that, multiple organizations, right, despite the industry, you are having the chance to break silos. Pretty much business and technology, sometimes they don't talk each other into the same terms. So when you try to promote and drive value, right, through projects or programs or products, whatever your business is, right, I think the EA can marry all those together by a governance body to analyze basically your solution or your architecture. So one thing that was very, very helpful in my organization was that we promoted a solution review board, and now it's evolving into an architecture review board. What is this body of governance, right? The solution review board is basically a group of, let's say, the CIO or the CTO, right, sitting down with all the VPs of every IT, and then the business. So in other words, you're combining the senior leadership, right, mindset into evaluating every solution from the architecture perspective. So from bottom up and top down. So in other words, if I want to implement a new ERP, for example, right, then the architect really needs to gather all the different components of the solution, from varying from business process, what is the business proposal, right? What is the business value or the outcome that we seek on this particular, solution, and then evaluate options and what's basically the ROI at the end of, let's say, the implementation. And then you present, your, let's say, business process view, right, or business architecture. You present as well your logical architecture and then your physical architecture. Basically, to understand if it's a cloud native or based solution, right? How are you going to connect your network or your on-premise systems to theirs, okay? Or if you want to basically do a brand new installation of your system, right, on premises, then hey, what type of hardware do you want to actually buy, et cetera, et cetera. Bottom line is like in this council, right? The EA is the body that governs, right, the solution and can actually make the call to stop the project or go back and ask, hey, needs more work. So all of this really is happening every Monday, right? And tactically, because then everyone is basically having a milestone in their project lifecycle. Whether you are using waterfall or agile or scrum, whichever methodology, right? These are particular milestones to ensure that the solutions are properly reviewed by the senior leadership, including obviously the CIO or CTO. In that way, everyone, right, not only in IT, but the business lead who's trying to also promote something to get value, right, in return for the company, they want to basically pitch the case, right, starting from the define phase, then to the high level design, going to the detailed design, right, and once it's ready, right, start the building, processing, deployment, right, and then have another, let's say, solution review board. We call it SRVs, SRV1, SRV2, SRV3, and SRV4. And those particular milestones, right, are helping us to govern the body of work entirely to ship something to production. Questions?
Yeah, I have one. It sounds really, really cool. I mean, it was awesome, Marco. But how do you get the VPs and the CTO, all the all the heavy suits to get together and say, okay, we're going to do a governance body? Because that's something that someone like me, I'm just a foot soldier. I don't have that kind of access, or I can suggest it to my boss, but I'm not really sure how that information will travel upwards and what kind of ripple effect it will have. So how did you guys trigger this initiative? Was it you collectively? Was it your lead? Was it your line manager? Or how about did you do this?
Yeah, I think just to
Yes.
add to what Sammy said, sorry, Marco, one second. Just to add to what Sammy said, so basically, your case is a perfect case of a company which has got a lot of EA maturity and you've got a governance in place, but he is working with a startup like Atmosphere, whereas for the longest period of time, they have been a startup. So like they're just quick and moving fast kind of stuff. So they don't have probably time for governance and architecture review board. So it's kind of ad hoc at times, so as and when needed, they create it and then dissolve it. So there is something called a DpBok, Digital Practitioners Body of Knowledge. I have seen it actually. So that talks about like you go from a startup stage where there's a founder, then you go from there to a team, and then for a team of teams, and then you go for an enterprise. And when you reach the enterprise level of maturity, that's when you have the luxury of having a governance board, an architecture review board, a solution review board, and things like that. So if you've not scaled that ladder, for instance, in companies which have been running the business and don't have too much of time for architecture maturity for whatever reason, so I think then I think that's one of the situations that Sammy is in, from what I can understand. Because the maturity is there, then it's easy to sell it to people. Like I've worked in companies wherein I was part of a team wherein we grew up, and then we became part of an architecture team, and there was a chief architect and people reporting. All that came step by step in a couple of 3 to 4 years. And then I've been part of some other teams wherein I joined directly as an architect, and which had a head of architecture, then principal architects, and all of that sort of stuff. So it's much easier in the second case to sell your strategy and story, rather than the first one wherein there's no architecture maturity at all. So I think it's a journey that we will have to progress, and take one step at a time, and then build that confidence that here is us, we can actually solve big, hairy, wicked problems, that kind of stuff. So unless we give that assurance, the management will not believe in the fact that we need an architecture team and so on. So I think that's your precise situation, right, Sammy?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I have a really good relationship with my boss, and we have a very open discussion, and we generally agree on we need to have some sort of an EA established. But we have all these groups, because it's been a startup for so long, and the startup has an issue with getting out of that culture, and there's also like an average turnaround of 2 years, basically. So there's a lot of knowledge going in and out. So every time people leave and people come in, they still have this, oh, it's a startup culture. So things never really get fully established in some proper structured form. And I think that's really what I'm battling right now.
Yeah, I think Marco, you can talk about your journey wherein you've been through some situations where there was absolutely zero buy-in from the stakeholders, and how did you scale up and build an architecture review board or maturity? Maybe I think that might be quite relevant in this case.
I mean,
Yes.
it.
Sorry. Can I just contribute or?
Please go ahead. Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So to give you a suggestion, Sammy, I guess seems like I'm trying to get obviously a grasp of your situation, and I think that it's primarily important, right? To if you have a very good relationship with your manager, right? Bring the rest of the managers, right? If you are working on, let's say, software delivery, you need to speak with the infrastructure guys, you need to speak with the network guys, you need to speak basically with all the functions in IT, right? All those VPs. Make sure that you guys, right, have a let's say, a deck or a presentation where you're trying to sell the value of either a governance body or a group, an EA group that actually can drive right roadmaps. The second thing that has helped us in our end is to basically track the technology lifecycle, right? That is something that is very basic to EA function because even if you're a small shop or not, right? I heard that you say you're using what Salesforce or any other commercial off the shelf software, right? So that's pretty important because the architects need to know, right, what is the, let's say, foreseen plan, right, to basically make those kind of decisions of replacing or refactoring or re-architecting or rewriting, lift and shift, all those things, right? The architect actually not only about the governance body, they need to know what is the technology life cycle and all those components, right, go into the either solution or architecture review board as you mature your practice. But if you don't basically have a cohesive, let's say, synergy and buy-in from the other IT functions in the company, then the CIO or CTO, probably will have I would say a harder time to just listen to your manager, right? I think you need to basically approach it from the bottom up and then remove those silos, bring the rest of the functions together, right, and have this particular sales pitch in a form of a presentation to convince that you need to mature those processes from the EA perspective to basically continue convincing to drive value, continue convincing that you need more governance on your processes, right? Because let's say in simple words, before we were an EA established in the company I work for, right? We were realizing that basically software was bought by supply chain without knowing that merchandising was impacted, or software or hardware was bought by I don't know, or implemented by I don't know finance that procurement didn't know it. So because of the lack of visibility across the enterprise and up and down in every vertical or tower, then the functions were not talking each other, and they really didn't have an alignment. So this is again what EA needs to bring to the table: is alignment, governance, right, and visibility to the future in terms of again technology, and not to say obviously strategy and business, but sometimes their own BUs, right, have their own agenda, but it's only on their own, and they don't have visibility across other areas. So that's one thing that if you achieve that kind of synergy across the function, not only with your manager, then you need to set it up, and then the CIO needs to set it up again to other executives, CFO, the CEO himself or herself. Anyway, thank you.
Yeah, I think thanks, Marco, for that. So, any other question? Any other thoughts, Ahmad, Devan? Anybody else wants to share their thoughts?
Hey, Kiran, hi, this is Pankaj here. The current client, the visibility perspective, we have direct visibility to the CIO of the existing client's IT governance. And what happens is the current CIO, as you rightly said, he should be a EA so to better, governs, the framework. But what happened is, in my case, the current CIO is kind of he's good at giving the ideas. So he understands the back-end business requirement. He just translates that this is what I want, and then on that basis, he just throws his views that I want, for example, MRA or cloud solution, for example. So from there we actually start. We actually understand the idea, understand the business aspects, then prepare the value add presentations and the execution plans. Then the governance slide is added, and then scalability, how we can make the future scalable solution for that. So and with obviously the profitability and how it will give the value add to the business. This we are doing unknowingly or knowingly, I don't know, because I'm pretty new to EA framework. But point here I want to make is, first we need to have a visibility to our top management. But what generally happens is now the CEO layer, they want quick gains and quick you know quick quick benefits, basically, to so that they can showcase it to the business and get it realized. We generally get we will generally get to we won't get a time to implement a proper process. But I think we need to simultaneously start our own journey in this. So for example, me, as my personal goal is, I will, as and when I understand the completeness of this framework, I will ensure all my project pipelines go through this framework. I won't tell him that this is what we are doing it, because all my IT streams are under my reporting. So I get my Wintel support, I get my network support, cyber security support, or whatever. So for me, it's like I'll driven it as a black box for them. I won't showcase this is my framework, this is how I'm delivering, as long as I'm giving him value and a right solution to his requirements. And then simultaneously I'll start showcasing him how I could deliver this. So that way he has the solution in his hand. However, he understands, or I can make him realize if this worked because of this, and this is the EA framework. And that way it will fetch you more value and less time to roll this out, because otherwise, if business don't understand, they don't care. So if it is a if it directly converts to their monetary benefits. So I think as per my the environment which I am thrown in, I think that could be the best suited approach. That is what I want to say. And for the Sammy's case, Sammy is saying his report, there is some kind of a black hole once he convinces his boss. So it's definitely I had the same issue, and not in this context but in some other context. But I found that it's definitely the connect between the bosses and their bosses. So we don't have any control on that, but rather if we can keep realizing showing the outcome because of certain framework or certain process, business eventually will buy that in. And basically they don't care which framework we follow, as long as we are giving the value add. So our boss is important to know how we are getting governed, and he should be a good salesperson for us, for the top management. So that's few cents from me.
Okay, thanks. I think that comes to the visibility part of it. I think we discussed that. So I think we need to work towards making ourselves visible. So I've seen this, that he's a technology architect, but he'll just volunteer his time for becoming a pre-sales go-to person and answer some pre-sales questions, get into an RFP. So he'll just go outside his comfort zone and get the top management visibility. That he's seen as a guy who can solve problems, seen as a change agent. I think if you do that, Sami, a little bit here and there, wherever you feel you can actually extend your bandwidth, that will immediately get the management visibility. And once they have that, then it's smooth sailing from there on. But yes, in a place where there is absolutely no maturity, it's a lot of struggle. You'll have to work your way up and convince stakeholders and get their buy-in. So till then, I think it will be a challenge, is what I see. And I think I just gathered before this talk, I just gathered a nice slice of information. I think I'll just share my screen here so that I'll just show it to everybody here, and it might make a lot of sense. So I'm just sharing my screen. So is everybody able to see my screen? Everybody able to see my screen?
Yeah, I can see.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So this actually gathered from one of the architects who talked about how to sell EA to the top management kind of stuff. So basically, it talks about people who looking at EA from a cost perspective. Like they are just I put X money, I want 10x in like 2 years, 3 years, 5x. That's all what I care about. So then you look at it just as a cost. So then you just don't care about you just outsource IT. If India does it at 3 times the price, China does it at 1 times the price, give it to China or Indonesia or some other cheaper place. So that's all what they care about. So that's the cost center based maturity. Then they start realizing, okay, let us treat the investment. And so basically here the architects report to CFO, the chief financial officer who's signing bills and invoices and checks and that kind of stuff. And then you go to the next level wherein there is you actually start reporting to a proper COO, and then you're worried about, okay, if I invest this, what is the return I get? So slightly better situation. You're talking about ROI based on what I do it, and then you're harmonizing and rationalizing your investment in IT. You're looking at economies of scale, trying to balance your IT portfolio across multiple vendors and solutions. That's the next level. The other one is you treat IT as a business partner, and then here at least some chief digital officer or CDO is there whom you report into, and then you actually insource IT. So you do that bit, and then that apart, the next level is IT and business are quite married to each other quite well, and then they report to the CEO, who is driving everything and anything within the company, and it is not outsourced. It is no shadow IT. So IT is looked as an enabler for all business problems, and you do that sort of stuff. So that gives so that is the maturity that these architects have to go through. When you not in a environment where there's absolutely zero maturity towards having a proper architecture review board and all of that sort of stuff. So I think that's some very interesting thought that I found is quite relevant to this group and discussion. So I think we'll have to go through that journey and ensure that over a period of 1 or 2 years, 3 years, sometimes we reach a state wherein there is a separate architecture review board which understands that there is a set of architects whose main job is to worry about strategy and portfolio management and roadmap and governance and all of that sort of stuff. So I think it's in our own interest that we drive those initiatives in the company and get visibility and buy-in. So I think that's a very short answer to what Sammy asked for. So I think that's what I found on the net that I thought could be useful to this group.
Kiran, one question here. See,
Yeah.
when you say visibility, does that mean that Sammy or let's say anybody else, he should jump into each and every fire, whatever fire is there, he should go and douse that fire, then only he will get visibility?
No, not really. But that would be an extreme part of it because you'll burn out very soon, and that should not be the case. But then, along with what you're doing, try to pick up something on your plate which is slightly outside of what you. Sometimes you might be doing some very technically challenging job, or you must have done a great job yourself, but then the management doesn't see it that way because perhaps the management has not, stakeholders have not been convinced that that was something tough. So basically, you just volunteer to do some piece of work outside of your comfort zone from time to time. It's not that you stress yourself and get into the burnout thing. So you do it over a period of time, and then this guy is like he's a go-to guy. We can depend on him for getting things done. So I've seen people who just volunteer for a pre-sales call, and then he was actually a guy who could troubleshoot a lot of problems, and then he took the pre-sales call, and then he actually made a fantastic presentation, and then finally ultimately he became a superstar at the end of that engagement. In terms, he became the blue-eyed boy of the management. So I'm not saying you put yourself in a very tight spot, and you do it when things are comfortable and you like doing stuff. to avoid a burnout. So that's the surefire way to get visibility when there is no visibility. I think that's what we need to do.
Okay, thank you.
So anything, I think we had a good, interesting discussion. So we've reached the 1 hour limit. So Sammy, anything else that you want to, because you're the initiator of this thread. So anything else you want to add on top of this, or anything else that you want to say?
No, I to be honest, you kind of like you set a lot of thoughts into motion, and I honestly thought that I would sort of I don't know, because I'm new to the role, so I always thought I would hit the ground running, but apparently this seems to be a theme, a recurring theme. But I've never really spoken to anyone who's faced this. I mean, they've always gotten into an architecture practice where it was already established, there were already processes, so people always thought it was odd. But it seems like everybody here has been on some sort of journey, where they encounter organization at some specific maturity level. Unfortunately, where I'm at, there is nothing. There is something interesting. There is no such thing as a team of teams as you establish it. It's actually a lot of teams, and occasionally there is some collaboration on minor things, but each group actually does its own thing. And sometimes we do need, we need a service that does this because we need to integrate. And then there's like some minimal collaboration, maybe two people emailing back and forth, and maybe there's a spec written on a piece of toilet paper. Sorry about my language. And that's kind of like the extent of the communication, but there is no formal process of documenting or mapping something out or anything like that. So I think you Kieran, you hit it. Yeah, you hit the nail right on its head. There is this phase of how an organization works, and it goes from being a lot of a team, several teams, team of teams, and then an EA. And we are not currently at the state where we can say we have a team of teams where people can actually reach the conclusion, or we might need some sort of like a board to be able to make some decisions and agree on some standards and principles that we need to abide by. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a journey. I think we need to carry forward because, as I say, governance is a luxurious thing which you can afford once you have a team of teams. So that's the next step. So even if you're working in siloed states, then yes, governance is a luxury. Architecture review board is a luxury. So we need to build it over a period of time, and then if you happen to be in that company for quite some time, so probably you will actually end up creating the board yourself and be part of the board when it's not there, things like that. So I think that's a journey that we need to take into effect. And yeah, but I've seen that management, it's once you showcase them the value and the visibility is there, then they buy in, and it's easy to drive initiatives. Till then, they're very skeptical, and like as you said, they just firefighting and dousing fires here and there. So because they've got used to that way of working, and then they feel that's the best way. They've not seen the world, they've not seen something outside which works for them better. So that can happen when there is change of guard at the top. Probably a new CIO, CTO comes, or a chief architect comes at the board, things like that. I think otherwise it's always one step at a time like this. So I think that's a very interesting discussion. So we've actually reached our 1 hour limit. So what we could do is periodically we could have things like this. Maybe we can, anybody who wants to give a tech talk or something like that on this group, like about any topic of interest, or somebody has a doubt like this, we can use this as a sounding board to get a set of people, advise each other, and that builds a community. And then we load all these discussions on a YouTube channel or something like that, and then you keep building the momentum, so that at least unless you've got a good mentor at office, you will not grow. So I think that was one of the discussions. So unless you've got a good boss who hears you out, you are like pretty much on your own, and you'll not pretty much go. So I think we could create this sort of a group. I think we started it right. We probably follow it up monthly, one call, like a meetup thing, wherein somebody says something and we say, okay, all us have some thoughts on that. We can get on a call like this, thrash it out, and exchange ideas. So I think all of us benefits from this exchange. Make sense?
I'm definitely in for that. I would like that.
Yeah, I think all of us, it's worth all our times. So I think thanks very much. So any last comments from anybody else, and then we can call it an end today. Marco, yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, no, first and foremost, I like the idea. I like the idea of, obviously getting to know us better through time, right, and collaborate. I think it's very important, right, to have a community with self-minded, teammates, let's say. So, again, thanks for putting this together and let me know how we can collaborate, right, moving forward.
Yes,
Thank
I
you
think
for everyone.
we could even come out with maybe a couple of white papers or whatever it is. I mean, from time to time, whoever is interested in doing a tech talk or experience-based talk on architecture, solution, design, can come up with. So I do actually mentor and train architects myself, apart from being a practicing architect. So I think I could also, at times, I would also pitch in with some topics, and then we can have similar sessions like this, and then we can have all of us in a huddle like this and create meaningful value add for all of us. So I think that's about that. So if you have nothing else, great to have everybody on this call. So I think maybe may the numbers keep growing as we progress, and then stay safe. And weekend is over, so I think have a great week ahead.
You too, Kiran.
You too.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you all.
Thanks
Bye-bye.
everybody. Bye bye.